Al-Azhar University by raising her voice through social media, increase the community participation of the women, increase number of seats in parliament in Egypt, to increase the political participation, by representation of women in senior management in the government sectors also.
I see. Oh, that's good. Okay. My last question for you is, maybe the other panelists may have a question too, since we have a lot of time. My last question is, are children with special needs, like those with disability, do they have specially created for in the child custody process?
No difference in the custody between normal children and children with special need or disability. But in Egypt, lawyers say an arrangement of custody for disabled children, the condition didn't never from normal. But he add in some discretion, some judge believe based on a study of a child case, presence of disabled child with his mother after end of the custody period, interest of the child, and therefore the ruling is that custody continue with the mothers even reaching the age of 15 years old.
Okay. Panelists, do you have co-panelists, do you have any questions that you would like to ask Dr. Abir? Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Abir. I will now move on to the next speaker. The next speaker is Rifat Juma Abdullah. He is the assistant to the Secretary General at South Sudan Islamic Council Department of Dawah and Pilgrimage Affairs. Under Sudan Islamic Council, Rifat Juma and the team are at the forefront to champion for the passage of family law and anti-gender-based violence bill that has yet to be passed. With regards to child custody, the adoption of the bills will lay a solid legal foundation to protect the interests of the child. He is also a gender champion under Promoting Positive Masculinities, an approach by Faith to Action Network aimed at promoting positive masculinities to lead to sustained behavior change and practice among men for reduced sexual and gender-based violence at household and community level. Rifat Juma Abdullah's the title of his paper is Child Custody to an Islamic Perspective in the Republic of South Sudan. Dr. Rifat Juma, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Ani. First of all, in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, I'm so happy to be a part of this wonderful meeting discussing this very important issue. The South Sudan Islamic Council actually is have the aim, you see, to participate in such meetings so that it can transform our societies in a good values. Before I go ahead, yes, I would like to remind all of you that South Sudan is like most countries in the world. You see, considering family as the cornerstone of the country. So in South Sudan, you could see that women and children are particularly vulnerable to mistreatment, discrimination, and crimes within the institution of the family. This is because of the absence of national family law. So women and children have limited resources and access to justice, including the religious institutions, such as South Sudan Islamic Council. So South Sudan Islamic Council is a forefront, you see, champion the passage of the family law bill and the anti-GBV bill that are yet to be passed with regards to child custody. So the adoption of these bills will lay a solid legal foundation to protect legal matters pertaining to the family, currently now governed by the customary justice, which often overlooks the needs of the women and children. Actually, if we want to talk about it, we quote the rulings or the provision as the Sharia. The right of women to custody of their children when they are no longer with their husbands, provided that if they do not remarry, you see. And this right is known as Habana. It's known as Habana. The verses of the Quran and the Hadith, the words of the Prophet, peace be upon him, also provides that during the nursing period, so which is 2.5 years. Here, the full right of custody is to the mother, you see. And there's some verses proved that, and also there's some hadith from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, also prove that. Our Islamic scholars, they are differentiating between the custody of male and female children. Yes, I'm going to quote, you see, the Sunni scholars. Yeah. Actually, they're saying that the male child, you see, the custody or the right of custody revert to the mother when the child is still at the nursing period. So here, the mother has the full right at that age. But if age of 7 years, then the child will be given what? A choice, either to be with the mother or to go with the father, while the father has the right at that age. And then we have also the legal custody. The father is, we know that, and we prove that the father is the head of the family and in charge of the children until the for granting physical custody during a child's years does not change the general rule. In addition to that, because mothers and fathers are mandated to raise their children as Muslims, a non-Muslim or a Muslim mother who converts to another religion is not permitted to keep the custody of a Muslim child. You see, that is very obvious. And also fathers must approve of the children education, including the places, types of schools attended, and the type of education received. Although custodial mothers are restricted from remarrying. In some jurisdictions, a father's petition for custody based on a mother's remarriage may be waived if the petition is not raised in a timely manner. So employment of custodial mothers may be substantially capped if the father disapproves that. So the father's here obligation to prove a suitable residence for his children limits the freedom of custodial mothers to change their residence or the children's residence. Only the fathers can apply for the children passport. This is just some of the legal custodians that I'm just explaining. Let me just go through who we are as Islamic Council. Islamic Council is a religious association in South Sudan tasked with with the mandate to manage the affairs of the Muslim community and promoting religious tolerance in the country. So Islamic Council, or South Sudan Islamic Council, was founded in 2005 at the wake of the signing of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, CPA. So after the independence of the Republic of South Sudan, the South Sudan Islamic Council officially began its operations to ensure social cohesion among the different religious groups in the country. So the 21 years long civil that ultimately culminated to autonomy and independence of the southern region of the Sudan was in part instigated by religious intolerance between the Muslim and Christian communities. There's a lot to say about who we are. In fact, our objectives to explain how Islamic institutions should consider and respect the rights of women and children, and also to ensure a great advocacy through the scriptures, clarification, and to ensure also children's right communities within the social or the social cultural growing on Islam. And also one of our aim is to end the root causes of GBV and SGBV. Our strategies fostering collaboration with other faith institutions across the country to drive forward the agenda to promote peaceful, advocate the amendment, ratification policy from work that seek cohesion, women and children against harmful traditions. Thirdly, challenging negative social norms and practices through proper interpretation of the scriptures, and participating in interreligious exchange visits among the different denominations of Islam to instill a sense of togetherness, share knowledge and experiences. This is simply this is our strategies in South Sudan Islamic Council, and our achievement is we have constantly encouraged women alongside their male counterparts taking part in the ongoing series of the community dialogues that seek to promote positive masculinities in the society by challenging the existing traditions that animate the women and children. Actually, this is our achievement within this short period, just I can say 2 years ago. And we're happy to see these achievements happening in our institution. We have learned so many lessons, while South Sudan has always been a very particular society where women and children are not what are at the bottom and are rarely involved in decision making. So recommendations, actually, there is need for what? For ratification of the family law bill, okay? Need for civic education and awareness, present in the rural and semi-urban areas on the constitutional provisions on the basic human rights as well as scripture, on rights of women and children. Simply that what I can say in this meeting, and if there's any questions, I'm already here to answer.
Thank you for your presentation. So just to clarify, in South Sudan, you do not have a Sharia court. You are trying to make the changes through the legislative body, correct?
Yes,
I
exactly.
see. Okay. All right. So my question is, how effective has the customary justice been in ensuring women's rights are upheld in the child custody issues? Because
Yeah,
there's different madhabs. You mentioned that there's different cultures, and so how do you ensure through the Islamic Council that you try to provide the fairness that mothers are looking in their child custody?
Yeah, in fact, in our case in South Sudan, you see, to have something is better to do not have anything. So we are considering that customary justice, at least solving some issues that relating to women and children. But we are looking forward to have a good institution that can handle, you see, these issues properly. Now, you can wonder to see someone who committed SGBV case, for example, to get him out of the jail. You see, that is happening here. So because what of the weakness of performance of the what customary justice, you see, there is some weakness here, and at least some cases that can be approved by this customary justice or traditional court, as we call them like that. And some of these cases also, they are sometimes transform it to Islamic councils, South Sudan Islamic Council. You see, sometimes I myself making supervision on some of these cases like that. So actually, it's not effective so much, but to have something is better to do not have anything. That is it. And that's what can I say here.
Okay. And so through your organization's interventions, whether it's you or in partnership with other organizations, have there been women who have won custody of their children?
Yeah, for sure. You see, here, if there's any such issues or such cases happening, you see, the victims are rushing, you see, to the traditional court. And then here, the traditional court cannot run that alone. Then they need our intervention, you see, to intervene. And sometimes they transform that case to our office, you see, to solve it there and to look at it. And if it needs any level of understanding, then we can deliver to the court, you see, in a way that the victim can get her or his right. It is like that. Recently, actually, we conduct 3 cases. You see, I was leading that. Yeah, 3 women got the custody, you see, to their children properly, and now they're living peacefully. Yeah, and the last one before 2 months ago. Yeah.
Can you give an example of one example of a specific case where what was the situation for this one particular woman, and why and how did she win her case? What was her situation?
Yeah. Let me just give you the last one. You see, the last case as an example. There's a certain woman sued a Muslim man who praying with our some of our leaders, you see. And then the man decided to take what? The children from her after he divorced, you see, the wife. And then here, she was crying, actually. She was crying about that. And she has so many problems and issues, you see, on that. I cannot explain because it is too long a story. But we came out because here, you see, in South Sudan, the man, if you do not pay the full dowry, you see, if you do not pay that, you don't have the right to take what? The children from the mother. This is traditional, you see. Unless you complete paying of the dowry, then you have the right to what? To the children. It is like that. But here in Islam, we know that the man has the right to the children in a certain way. But you cannot take the child while the right of custody revert to what? To the mother. So actually we intervene in that issue. Beside of that, the husband was what? Was a military man, you see, using force to take the children from the mother, and they are still young, and so something like that. Actually, we intervene in that, and we take the children and we give the children to the mother, and up to now they are living peacefully. And even me, I'm happy with that, visiting them from time to time.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Rifat Juma, for your presentation and for sharing the circumstances in South Sudan and the work that you're doing. Our next speaker, presenter is Lailatis Sharifah. She is an activist of ICIA, member of Fatwa and Research Council Majlis Tarjih and Tajdeed of Muhammadiyah. She is a lecturer in the Department of Sharia Economy, University Islam Negeri Sunun Kaliga, Yogyakarta. Lailatis holds a bachelor at Faculty of Islamic Law, Al-Azhar University, Cairo, Egypt, and a master degree in Islamic Economics, Universitas Gajah Mada. Some of her published work in Tuntunan Menuju Keluarga, Sakinah, and Fikih Kebencanaan, written with other authors, published by Suara Muhammadiyah publisher. She also wrote articles in several academic journals. Professor Laita Sharifah, her presentation, her paper is titled Islamic Perspective on Parenting Justice. Please.
Okay. Thank you very much. And please share my PPT to Michael or Beth, yeah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Sister Annie, as the moderator in this webinar, and all honorable speakers, Dr. Abir Abdul Wahab Al-Muwafi, Imam Rifat Juma Abdullah, and Judge Sumut Ad-Damiri, and also thank you very much for Faith to Action Network for taking me as speakers in this webinar. Okay, we are talking about parenting justice in Islamic perspective. First of all, let's have a look at some facts in several countries with Muslim majority societies. If we see the condition in these countries, we will find different models of parenting practice in marriage and outside marriage, or after the separation of parents, even because of divorce or because of death. Okay, we can see here in marriage, the role of father and mother in parenting is equal. Usually, the burden on women is heavier because the burden of living is on the father. So later on, the situation changed after the separation of parents, either because of divorce or because of death. Literally, the care of children of growing age is cared for by the mother, with the cost of being cared is on the father. But in practice, many women have to bear the burden of raising children themselves. And because there are no punishment to father who do not fulfill their obligation to provide the rising of their children after a divorce. And in the other societies, the status of widow or women without husband places women in the lowest social class in the society. So they are forced to remain single after divorce or after the death of her husband, to avoid losing property and child custody. In some areas, both custody or property can be legally claimed by their late husband extended family. That's the problem. And from this fact, there is one question: is this practice come from the Islamic teaching, or how does Islam actually view the parenting? The next slide, please. So the answer is in this verses and also in hadith. The first is At-Tahrim, number 6. We can see here, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. So
the verse commands the believers to protect them.
To protect themselves and their families from the hell. We can see here that the order is aimed to all family members, not only to men as father or only for women as mother, but for all family members. They have to protect themselves and also their families from the hell. And we can see from Surah An-Nisa number 9, وَلْيَخْشَى الَّذِينَ لَوْ تَرَكُوا مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّةً ضِعَافًا خَافُوا عَلَيْهِمْ. So we have to not leave our offspring in condition. Here, the comment or mukhatab in this verse also all guardians, so not only for men and not only for women. So it is with the word alladhina, which means people. According to Zamakhshari, it means guardian. Next slide, please. And this is in line with the basic of Tawheed, the basic values of Tawheed, as mentioned in Ash-Shu'ara 49 until 50, that parents are only the executors of God's mandate to care for children and to educate children. So here we can find that men or women, father and mother have the same position before God. So they are just the what they are just God's servants to care the children, and they have to obey all Allah's rule, and also they have to stay away from all prohibition. So this indicates that all of family members are same before God. There is no master and there is no slave in the family. All same before God. This Abu Hurairah that all children born is on the fitrah state or holy state, and the parents responsible for him to be Jews or Christian or Majusi, Yuhawidani or Yunusirani or Yumajisanihi. So the keywords in this hadith, both parents, mother and father, are equally responsible for the children. So understand here that both male and female have the same right and also the same obligation in raising the children. Therefore, even though in marriage or after marriage or outside marriage or after divorce, both parents must continue to work together to raise the children. We can see on the next slide that Al-Quran said in Al-Baqarah number 233 that if there is a divorce between men and women, in the next slide, yeah. So the fulfillment of child's milk can be done by the mother or by hiring another person, but the father must provide a living for it according to his ability as the compensation, because the mother has to fulfill the child's milk, and the father must provide a living. This is the basic rules in parenting's right in Islam. And the second is talking about nasab, because here I will talk about three main idea. The first is parenting, and the second is nasab and or lineage, and the third is guardians or al-wali or al-wilayah. Talking about nasab in the next slide, based on hadith from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, al-waladu lil firash walil ahiri al-hajar. So most of the jurists state that the lineage of the children born in marriage is to the legal husband for the baby's mother, while when the children born out of wedlock or adultery or azina, so their lineage is only to the mother. Scholars explain that this is based on the assumption that the children are a gift from God. So azani, adulterer, and azania, adulteress, are not entitled to lineage, because it is a punishment for him. So there comes the question: is there a fairness here for the child? This assumption only looks at one side, only looks at the azani or adulterer, but it doesn't look to the child as human beings that have right to clarify his lineage. On the next slide, we can see here Al-Ahzab number 4 to 5 told Muslim to call the children by their father's name. Ud'uhum li'abaihim. That's why when Rasulullah called Zaid bin Muhammad, it was forbidden by Allah. Allah forbidden him to call him Zaid bin Muhammad, but Rasulullah Muhammad have to call him by Zaid bin Harithah, his biological father. So we can see here that lineage is the right of children, and it is must be directly to their biological father. And the second, we can find many words related to nasab in the Quran. The next slide, please. All words in the Quran that's related to the al-musaharah or an-nasab are referred to kinship relation that are bilateral in nature, such as contained in the verses of maharim or the verses of inheritance. We can see that Al-Quran explained that the inheritance rights of awlad without distinction between male and female line, and also the inheritance of abawain, fali abawaihi fali kulli wahidin minhuma sudus. The Quran doesn't distinguish between male and female. Also, the inheritance for ikhwah, فَإِنْ كَانُوا أَكْثَرَ مِنْ ذَلِكَ فَهُمْ شُرَكَاء فِي الثُّلُثِ. So there is no difference here between men and male, men and women. Also, the issue of muharramat fil Quran, we can see that the Quran explicitly views the same between ammat, the aunt from father, and also khalat, the aunt from mother, and also between banatul nephews from women, banatul nephews from men, and also banatul nephews from women. So it can be emphasized that Quran is not in favor of relatives from male line or female line. The two groups of relatives are treated the same. So also we can see in Toha 94 that Prophet Musa called his his brother, Prophet Harun, with the word Yabna Umma, mother of my mother's son. So he didn't call him by the word Yabna Abi, oh my father's son. So it means the Quran tends to be a parental or bilateral kinship system, not to a matrilineal or patrilineal kinship system. So in about lineage, we can emphasize that Quran is not in favor of relatives from the male line or from female line. They are treated same in the Quran. And the third, or also the last, is about guardianship. The next slide, please. Or we can say in Arabic, al-wilayah or al-wali. Actually, al-wali is not a big problem, but when come to the right of marriage for women, there is a problem here, because in fiqh, the marriage for women is given by religion to someone who can control their self and also their goods. Yeah. So scholars have different opinion regarding women's marriage. Shafi'iyah argues that women's marriage is invalid without a guardian. So if women get married without the permission from her guardian, it will be illegal. While Hanafiya says that women's marriage without a guardian is legal and she may marry herself. What the argument? Shafi'iyah arguments are based on the hadith la nikaha illa biwaliyin. So there is no marriage for women except with a guardian. Also, they build their arguments on Surat An-Nur number 32, Surat Al-Baqarah 221 and 232. And also the hadith from Aisha that state that the Sultan is the guardian for the women who doesn't have a guardian.
Laila?
While the argument,
Laila,
okay.
your time is up, long gone actually.
Okay,
but
okay.
I will. Can you wrap up in 30 seconds, please?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, only one slide more. So here, Hanafiya said, based on the hadith, al-ayyimu ahaqqu bi nafsiha min waliyiha wal bikru tusta'danu fi nafsiha wa idnuha sukutuha. That's
The virgin woman will have a guardian, but they can doesn't need a guardian.
opinions, we can understand that Shafi'iyah requires a guardian for women's married because they want to avoid women to be treated badly by the men who marry them. And at that time, the preference is for the men who were capable of protecting their female relatives. Meanwhile, Hanafiya said that a woman can be her own guardian because she is an adult human being who can distinguish between what is good and what is bad for her. As also narrated, that Rasul left the decision for women to continue or cancel her marriage because she was forced to marry by their parents. And also,
Laila, I need you to.
the last
Laila,
conclusion from me.
Laila, I really need
Yeah,
you to end, please. Yeah.
yeah, this is the end. So both from the Hanafiya's argument and also At-Taubah 71, we can see that men and women can become guardians of each other, yeah, equally. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any mistakes. That's from me. Billahi fi sabilil haq fastabiqul khairat. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Laila. Actually, it was a very good presentation, and I have a lot of questions, but I will save it for the last after we've done with all the presenters.
Yes.
The next speaker is Judge Sumud Damiri, and Judge Sumud is the first female appointed as the chief prosecutor of personal status for the Upper Council of Sharia courts in Palestine. The first female judge, a few firsts, yeah. The first female judge of the Sharia Court of Appeal in Palestine, currently working as a judge at a Sharia Court of Appeal. She has been awarded the Integrity Award in 2010. She studied law and contemporary Islamic studies and is currently studying theology. She is a valuable member of many committees, such as the National Team of Committee on the Elimination of Discriminations Against Women, CEDAW Committee, the National Team for Gender Equality, the National Referral System for Women Victims of Violence, and more. And Judge Sumud, her paper is titled Custody Rights in the Palestinian Sharia Courts Between Legal Pluralism and the Best Interest of Children. So just as a note, once in a while I hear the Arabic interpreter coming through the main audio channel, just so you know. All right, please proceed, Judge Sumud.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. I thank Faith to Action, you, Annie, for your efforts. I will give a summary about, as you mentioned, the right to custody and the Palestinian Sharia courts between legal, multiplicity, and best interest of children. Maybe it's important to mention to you and to my colleagues, to all speakers, participation today that we have Sharia courts for personal statute issues in Palestine, and also we have a civil court, and we also have ecclesiastical court and the Sumerian court, and all of us are members in the judiciary power. It is a constitutional issue in Palestine, so we are independent and we work with personal statute issues inside the Sharia courts in Palestine. Okay, Palestine is a complex model of legal multiplicity and judicial reference multiplicity to which the Palestinian resorts. The Ottoman family law of 1954 is applied in the Gaza Strip. The personal status law of 1976 is applied in the West Bank, and the amended Jordanian personal status law number 15 of 2019 is applied in East Jerusalem. According to this context, the Palestinians litigate before a Palestinian reference in the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and the suburbs of the occupied city of East Jerusalem. And in parallel, they litigate before a Jordanian judicial reference in East Jerusalem due to the Jordanian guardianship over Islamic endowments, censuses, and Sharia courts in the city. They also litigate before an Israeli reference in West Jerusalem. Thus, the residents of Jerusalem have 3 references to litigate for the multiplicity of laws regulating their life, and resorting to those references ranges between obligation and choice due to the complex legal and political situation of the occupied city of Jerusalem. Since Palestine is bound by the Hanafi school of thought as a reference, in case the personal status law applied in Palestine are devoid of any provisions of any matter of personal status affairs under Article 183 of the personal status law number 61 of 1976, as I mentioned, which applied in the West Bank, which stipulates what is not stated in this law shall be referred to the more correct view of the Abu Hanifa school of thought. We will limit the demonstration to those who are entitled to custody in accordance with the law in force, which is based on the Hanafi school of thought. The law on custody by Hanafi school reflects it in Articles 154 to 166 of the aforementioned personal status law already in force in the West Bank. Similarly, the provisions, legal and judicial application of the law are in force in the Gaza Strip or the East Jerusalem suburbs outside the apartheid wall. When we review the personal status law enforced in Palestinian territory, we shall not disregard the lack of the specific definition for custody and also for the best interest of custody, but also the law begins directly with the aforesaid text by mentioning those who are entitled to custody, then the consequences of custody, then it addresses some legal details concerning custody. We recall that the aforementioned personal status law in Article 154 stipulates that the one who is entitled to custody among women, the genuine mother, is primarily entitled to the custody and upbringing of her child during marriage and after separation. Then, after the mother, the right reverts to the women who follow the mother according to the order stipulated in the Hanafi school of thought. In addition, the decree law number 17 of 2016 regarding Sharia enforcement was ratified. It prohibited forced enforcement of rulings for minors above the age of discretion in cases of custody and fostering. The Sharia judiciary applied the new rulings issued by Sharia courts in an effort to support mechanisms and tools for the optimal enforcement of the rights to custody and fostering. The Sharia judiciary in this capacity tries to use best practices such as developing and interventions of family counseling and reform department operating in all courts of first instance, as well as interventions by social workers at the Ministry of Social Development with a direct referral from the judge, should the case require mitigation in a family dispute, specifically on children who do not accept the judicial ruling. In the same context, it is added that in case of a ruling to foster the young child by the father, the male son shall be entitled to choose. And if he chooses his mother, he shall not lose his right to alimony. unlike the female who shall not be entitled to choose, based on the text of Article 165, paragraph A, which stipulates that the Muhram Wali guardian may be entitled to foster the virgin female if she is under 40 years of age and or a widow, and the fostering was not intended to track and harm her. So if she refuses to enforce the ruling to be fostered to father, she is deemed to be a rebel per the legal description stated in paragraph P of Article 165, and she loses her right to alimony. Since the article stipulated if the female who is sentenced to be fostered to the wali guardian refuses to be fostered due to the injustice, he to be a guardian shall not pay alimony. This leads to sorting out this article as a discrimination, which legally disgraces the right to choice. And this legally reality, in addition to the fostering, to the foregoing, produces an economic discrimination between males and females and affects their economic ability to meet their basic needs, especially those related to education. And it stigmatizes the female as a rebel, often against her father. And therefore, she may be exposed to social bullying or negative psychological interactions, especially that this description produces a legal effect, which is cutting off alimony. On the other hand, Article 173 of the Jordanian law enforced in the Kingdom of Jordan and enforced in East Jerusalem has addresses these legal gaps, as it raised the age of custody for the male and females fostered by mother to 15 years, and for other eligible persons to 10 years, as the aforementioned article stipulated in paragraph A. The mother's custody shall continue until the foster child completes 15 years of age, and for a non-mother until the foster child completes 10 years. However, the non-mother custody in the law applied in the West Bank shall end when the male child completes 9, and for the female child when she completes 11 years old. And we mentioned this is deemed to be a foster gender-based discrimination. The aforementioned Jordanian law enforced in East Jerusalem considered the interest of the sick child in extending the custody of women girls after 15 years of age if the interest required, based on paragraph C of the foster child, based on the court's ruling that relies on the evidence and its position in favor of the foster child's care. In accordance with Article 170 of this law, this is a realistic implementation of the concept of the best interest of the foster child, in addition to the fact that the right to choice shall be for the male and female, and it shall extend until the age of maturity.
Judge Samad,
Yes.
your time is coming to an end. I was thinking to actually encompass your paper presentation. How about if I ask you a question, and then
Yes.
you, from your experience, you can summarize how the laws are being actually applied. So maybe you
Okay.
can give a particular case that where you had to adjudicate on a child custody,
Yes.
where there was a conflict between a particular community and the different court systems that you also had to navigate, you know?
Yes, please, if you want to ask me a practical question about my work,
I
you
think
can.
that might be a better
To
way.
clarify or to explain about legal liberalism in Palestine is a very complex, matter, and it's not easy. And we have to mention to 3 references with many laws, and we have political classifications. We have many regions, as you know, and it is available to the people. And to go here or there, and maybe we have sometimes conflict of laws or conflict of ruling.
Yeah.
So please, you can ask me and I will try to to answer.
So in a minute or two, can you give an example of one case that that exemplifies that gives a good example for the audience?
Yes. First, maybe you know that the legal liberalism in general has a bad impact about the individual's interest in general, especially on women, especially with the Palestinian females also, under these a very complex situation or circumstances. But sometimes, you know, beside the legal liberalism, we have many regions in Palestine under the political classification, like Area A, Area B, Area C. Okay. Inside these classifications, we have another kind of classification. And in parallel also, we have a special circumstances for the Jerusalem or the citizens inside Jerusalem, in East Jerusalem. And also we have a strong relationship because of historical reasons with the Arab Muslims inside Israeli territories. Mm-hmm. For that, we have a lot of cases with marital disputes, because you know they are our cousins at the end, the same families for a historical reasons. But the most important thing is if we have a dispute or not, and how we can solve these kind of disputes, and what is the situation, and what is the references. We have 3 references. For example, if we have a wife from the West Bank and the husband from Jerusalem, for example, East Jerusalem, the husband can go to the Jordanian court and to the Palestinian court, or to the Israeli court, which is in the West Jerusalem. If he has a ruling against his wife from the Israeli jurisdiction, he will never implement it here as a foreign ruling, because we not recognize with this ruling in the civil courts and in the Sharia courts. Imagine that. And he has, if he is a husband or if she a wife from there, she or he has to start from a zero here, because we allow to him to resort to the Sharia courts inside Palestine. That's the first. And if he or she has a knowledge that before we are not recognize this ruling, they will never waste their times at the end, because you know to go to the court, it is costly. They need the time, they need the money, they need the lawyers. It's not easy to them. That's the first. But sometimes they try to exploit the situation, the political situation, especially in alumni cases, because you know they have a special scale for alimonies inside the Israeli territories, not equal with the situation in Palestine. Sometimes they try to exploit this situation. That's the first. But also, you know, it is a fact that we have a Jordanian court inside the East Jerusalem, but the people or the citizenship inside Jerusalem cannot implement the rulings easily, because at the end, the judiciary police is the Israeli one, because you know, it's a part of their sovereignty. And if the husband or wife has any ruling from the courts surrounding the East Jerusalem, it's not easy to implement it inside East Jerusalem or West Jerusalem, because they haven't a permission to enter Jerusalem. And in the same time, in parallel, they haven't guarantees for a fair trial. And it's important, and they need a lot of money to have lawyers there. So imagine that with the abduction of the children, sometimes it's not easy, because if you check the Oslo agreements between the Israeli and the Palestinian party, you will never find any coordination and personal status issues. You just find a coordination in criminal issues. And if you check also the Riyadh agreement between the countries in the Arab world, you will never find any coordination. And you know, we haven't a sovereignty of the borders, and sometimes they abduct children via Jordan or to Jordan, or abduct children from the Gaza Strip to the Egyptian territory, and it's not easy. And we haven't clear addresses for this kind of disputes. It's like a law conflict. We haven't rulings here also for this kind of disputes. And we have also, besides that, a legal liberalism in the criminal issues. We have a British one which apply in Gaza, a penal code, and we have other one which apply Jordanian one for 1960.
So basically they can shop and go to the court that they want, that they think will get the best decision for them, possibly.
We try to put a circulars for that. We try to help ourselves. At the end, we are mothers and the fathers, you know.
Yeah.
And we have also children. One day they will become a mothers and a father. We have to try to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
But you know, citizens in Jerusalem, for example, they are stateless without any nationality.
Right.
Until now, we haven't a nationality law for Palestinians. So if we want to introduce who is the Palestinian to protect them inside or outside, inside the camps or not, it's not easy for us.
Thank you for sharing the complicated dynamics. It's not that simple. It's not just the Quran, the Hadith, and it's also the politics. And so with that, we have heard from all the presenters. We have a few minutes, and so I would like to ask if there's a question from the audience. And if there isn't, I will start with one for myself. And that is, the one thing that I've noticed, in all the presentations is that there's a lot of different diversity in the way the Quran is being interpreted, and it's basically based on fiqh rather than what the Quran's niyat intention is. And I'm just going to put this question in general to everyone, given that the institution, the Sunni institution in this regard is basically the Al-Azhar University, maybe a few others. And even like I have a sister who graduated from the Sharia law school from Al-Azhar. But, you know, besides, you know, that seems like the centralized institution that can really have a powerful impact in the way women's rights to child custody can actually be implemented in the country itself. And at the moment we have the cultural element, we have all different, the political elements influencing this issue. And so, you know, in one of the presentations papers, for example, the father only has the right to apply for a passport for the child. But this is in a society where, you know, it's a very patriarchal system, and then where women really do not have a lot of equal rights. And so how do we as Muslims and as scholars of Islam, as activists, as imams, etc., how do we, you know, collectively have a central system where this can be moved in the right direction for mothers? Because it seems like oftentimes the mothers have to make the sacrifice for their own happiness, right? They cannot move, they cannot get a job, they, you know, can't remarry. Yes. Anyone? Go ahead, Judge Samud. And then
yes, first of all, I want to tell you and the audience and the speaker that in Palestine we have a new law since 2020 that the mother can issue the passport for her children. And also she has all the rights for that. We have some struggles to travel with the children out of Palestine, and she can prevent the father to travel with them out of Palestine, and he can prevent her, but the authority of the father is stronger than the authority of the mother about the issue of traveling. But at the end, she has the authority, and she can ask the judge for that with some details, with some guarantee that she will never escape with the kids out of Palestine, and especially with our circumstances, because we haven't control about the borders. But I need always to remind myself and maybe the others that at the end, Quran and Sunnah reflect as articles, as laws between our hands. So we can look to it always and try to find a new interpretations for fiqh, and we can that in custody issues and alimony issues and guardianship also issues, and in many issues. We have in Palestine a big debate about the CEDAW conventions, about the amendment of the person statute issues with the social with the civil society, and sometimes the local community threat a lot of females from the civil society because of this discussion. At the end, we depend on the Sharia, and one of the main resources here in Palestine to regulate or to amend the laws is to look to the Sharia and the fiqh, one of the main resources. But at the end, what's the meaning of the Sharia? It is important to understand the meaning of the Sharia, the meaning of the ijtihad, where we can have where we can amend or not, or because the knowledge is very important. The knowledge is very important, and we have to present ourselves well educated, with knowledge and a lot of details, and to put our agenda on the table as a females inside Palestine or outside the Palestine.
Laila Tis, do you have something to add? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Continue. What did Judge Sumut told us, that we have to fight as we are in Muhammadiyah and Aisyah. We are continuing to fight for women's rights. We have many ways. First, through literacy. So we have magazines called Suara Muhammadiyah and Suara Aisyah, Voice of Muhammadiyah and Voice of Aisyah, which generally voice women's rights. And we also written many books, as Annie said, written for me before. We wrote the book of children's rights. We called it Fiqh on Child Protection, and also we wrote the book about women's rights in Keluarga Sakinah book. So with literacy, I think the voice of women's rights will be up and will be known, able to everyone. And also we have many programs. Of course, we have to collaborate with the government. Of course, we provide counseling to the bride or groom before they get married, so they understand their rights and their obligation as parents according to Sharia Islamiyah. We guide them before they get married. We also work with religious leaders and local community leaders. So there are the main harakah in the society. Without them, we don't have we don't have hands. I think the local community leaders and also religious leaders is very important to promote women's rights in Islam. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to probably, we're about 12 minutes away from the end of this program. While we're waiting for the question in writing, Azza Soliman, I believe she's an activist in Egypt. She was saying how they are now they're advocating for a change in laws there, where a woman's right to child custody will be retained even if she remarries. I think this is actually one of the contentious issue for women, is like losing their child. I mean, that is really that's a tough choice. And like I said, a lot of times the women have to make the decision to sacrifice happiness, their own happiness, right? And that's really not what Islam is about. I think that what I find very interesting is that there's the authority of the father and the way a lot of the fiqh is being utilized in our society in the 21st century is very much on the basis of the fact that men are the sole breadwinners, and women are being taken care of, right? But this is not the society that we live. Obviously, we have two women who are thinkers and scholars and judges, etc. And so, we really do have to think about how we translate and how we interpret in the fiqh. I would advocate for a fiqh that reflects the 21st century. And so if there's any comments you want to add to that, and if there's a role that you can play in that, in your particular in the position that you are in, for all of you. Juma, you want to say something to that? And I ask you all to be very, very brief, because I have to end this program any minute now, because I have to say a closing prayer before we end.
Thank you, Annie, for your good job today. And I think that fundraising in America or something like that.
Yes,
It's
yes,
too
it
early.
is. The sun is rising.
We're
in
sorry
Los
for
Angeles.
that. We're sorry for
okay.
that. But if we can in the future discuss more details about how we can reflect the best interest in our rulings, or how we can find a definition for the best interest.
Yeah.
Okay, because many countries in the Arab world sign also on the conventions of the children convention, and it's important because it's our opportunity in Palestine to customize or to harmonize our local or national laws with some conventions. So it will be a strong opportunity to discuss with other partners, or to see other experience all around the world, Islamic world or Arab world, because it's the time to work in Palestine.
Yeah.
And as the judges, we always worry about how we can use a small areas for us, a small authority for us to reflect our attitudes, to have or to reach to the best interest of the child. This is very important.
So on that note, I am actually going to, you took the point out of my closing remark, and that is, it would be wonderful if we actually interpreted the surahs from the Quran when it comes to child custody from the prism of the child, rather from the man or the woman even. If we were going to read it from the prism of the child's right, the child's happiness, and a lot of that is already spoken to in the Quran, but however, the interpretation of it and the way we are living that interpretation has been really at the detriment of the child. And so I think as men and women, as adults, we need to step away from our egos, and we need to actually look for the well-being of the child as the utmost importance, because when a child, as you know, is raised in a very harmful environment of violence and unhappiness between the parents, it affects the child. It affects the child and how the child is raised, and also the outcome of the personality of the child. And so for me as an individual and also as a mother, I'm very much invested in the happiness of my child as primary. And I think many parents can attest to that. And I think that would be the parting remarks that I have on this particular dialogue in regards to the women's rights to child custody. Is the focus is not just on the happiness of everyone involved, but also in particular the child. And so with that, I will end with a very, very short prayer, just to say that inshallah, for all of us who are involved in this activity, in making the right judgment, in teaching the right words of the teachings of the Quran, I pray that we all go forward in our teachings, in our daily work, without ego, and with the love of God, and with the love of humanity, and in this particular case, with the love of the child. And so with that, I wish everyone assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you everyone for attending.
Very much.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.